Hi, my name is Sage, and this week... Well, actually, 2 weeks ago, I did a poll on my YouTube channel and it was tied, and I promised I would do both. And since last week I did the crazy paper mache, this week I am making a punk rock Butterfree, so I'm going to need some tinfoil and some clay. And so I tear some tinfoil off. My tinfoil is almost all gone. That's why it kind of looks a little bit sad, but that's besides the point. And so I scrunch some tinfoil up into a ball before then getting my rat's nest of wire and cutting a piece off, as this will be the future antenna. I then take even more tinfoil and scrunch that around the antenna, as this will be the head. So now that he looks like a two-tiered snowman with some antenna, I then wha-bam, cover him with clay. And so I embark on my journey of making him some eyes, and this took me a hot minute because it's hard to make two things that look similar, because at first they look like cousins and not sisters, and that was my bad. So I ended up taking off the first one and holding it up to the second one and doing my best to make them look like they're at least related in some capacity. And I think I accomplished that, so I was pretty happy. After that, I make his mouth by squishing a piece of clay into the mat to make an oval shape, and I put it on his head. And voila! His mouth is done. Or I guess it might be his nose, but regardless, it is done. And then I move on to giving him a mohawk. Everyone knows punks have mohawks, so I'm gonna give him a mohawk too. And so I roll 3 little cones of clay before then sticking them on his head. And once they are all on there, I then take my ball stylus and blend them to his head to make sure they're all nice and secure. After that, I take even more clay and start to make his little feet. And Butterfree's feet are like 2 long ovals, but I make mine a bit more pointed at the end because he's edgy, ooh. And I also end up redoing his feet like 3 different times, so don't get attached. But then I take even more tinfoil, and I think it's a great idea to try and make him a guitar. And you may be like, dude, that's so punk rock, that's a great idea. But it wasn't though, oh no. So I take some tinfoil and make it into like the body of the guitar, and bam, now it's all covered with clay. And I'm thinking in my head, this is looking a little big for Butterfree, but I'm deciding I'm going to completely ignore that, and that's not foreshadowing at all. But it is in fact foreshadowing. In fact, I get rid of the guitar completely. I spent so long on it just to rip it off. And then the guitar couldn't even be a guitar at the end anyway, because I couldn't fit all the little strings on it, and by strings I mean little wires, so it was gonna be a bass anyway, so it's not even an electric guitar anymore. And then here I am making a strap for the new bass instead of the guitar, because I'm thinking that since the guitar seems a little bit heavy, I could just put a strap on it as if this is like real life, and it is though, but the Butterfree is so much lighter, so he's just gonna fall over, and I know that, but I just don't want to accept that reality. And so I put the base strap on, and this is what he looks like, but as you can tell at the very bottom, my ball stylus is holding him up, because otherwise he's just gonna fall on his face, man. Like, oh no. And so I completely ignored that problem and started to make his wings instead, because I'm thinking, what if the wings balance him out, because that makes sense, but they didn't. Spoiler. And here I make 2 wire wings for Butterfree based off of a drawing that I did of Butterfree. So now I gotta add some clay to them to put them on his back to be disappointed in the future. The wings themselves ended up being like pretty decent to work with all the clay on them and everything, and I could stick them on, like that wasn't the problem. The wings themselves, I should have made them a little bit bigger, that was my bad, but that's just me. And you know what's crazy? Butterfree isn't even my favorite Pokemon. I just thought of Butterfree, you know what I mean? Like Butterfree's from Gen 1, I thought this was gonna be amazing, and you know what? He still is punk rock, but it's just everything went wrong, man. And so I start to embark on my journey of adding the wings by adding more clay in between the wings and the body, because that just made sense in my brain. Should have I added like an anchor of some sort? You know what? That's debatable. They didn't fall off, so I call that a win. But then I pull his foot off because I didn't like it. Because in my mind here, I was thinking, what if I make his feet thicker so he's sturdier? And that's not how that works. And I knew that. I was fully aware, but I just didn't want to accept it, you know? Like, Butterfree with an electric guitar was the vision, and then the vision turned into a bass, and then into nothing. And you may be like, Sage, he looks pretty sturdy right now, and he's decent, but the guitar keeps sliding down because it can't hold itself up, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I know if I put him into the oven like that, he's gonna fall over and then his face is gonna be all ruined, and I don't want that. So, obviously I have to make him some hands right now to ignore all my problems. Then later, one hand goes missing. I don't even know where it went. And you know what's crazy about Butterfree? Okay, because he doesn't have any arms. He only has hands, and I knew that by looking at him, obviously. But him not having arms really threw a wrench in my plans. So again, I ignore that problem, and I work on his antenna and give him some little fangs. Until finally, I decide, you know what? It's now time to tackle my problems head on. So I rip everything apart. And by rip everything apart, I mean take off the base and the base straps. I also took off his hands too because they were in the way. So now I have a new objective. And my new objective is to give him a punk rock vest. And so I flatten out some clay and I make some cuts to make a vest. I was in fashions at one point. I somewhat remember how patterns work, but this is really just a trial and error process because I don't do math. So once I get one side to look decent and I put his hand in to make sure that it looks good, I then do that to the other side, except the other side, get this, it's different, obviously, because it's the other side. But when I cut it out using the exact same measurements, it's wrong on the other side. I don't know if it's because he's a little lopsided, because you know, that's fine. We're all a little lopsided when you think about it. But the other side was really off because look at this side. It looks nice. And then the other side's just a mess. And it's the exact same thing. But you know what? That's okay. I'm going to take my ball stylus and figure it out. You know what I mean? I also use my pointed edge stylus to kind of flatten everything out, and that really worked more than the ball stylus, I'm not gonna lie. And here I'm gonna give him buttons. Ooh, because every punk rock vest has like buttons and patches, so I make those. I give him 3 buttons on one side, and the other side I give him like a coffin patch type of thing. I was thinking about making it a Coffagrigus, if you know what that is. It's another Pokemon. And it's a ghost type. I love ghost types, but then I thought it's kind of small and I need to reel it in a little bit. And this is where I make another hand because I lost the first one. I then make its fangs a little bit more pointy here as well because, you know, punk rock. Scary! And from here on out, well, I mean, I tear off his foot and I put it back on. It's okay. I just do random touch-ups here and there until finally, wha-bam! He looks like this. So then I put him into the oven and wha-bam again! He's now ready to be painted. And so I start with the first layer of purple, and I start off by painting his head, and then his belly, and then his mohawk. I was debating painting his mohawk a different color, but I figured since he has purple fur, I should just stick with the purple mohawk. I then paint his sides purple as well, before then moving on to his wings, which I'm gonna paint white, because he has white wings, and that's gonna take so many different layers, and this is just the first one, so it's gonna look not the best, but that's okay. Next, I paint his punk rock vest, and you guessed it, I paint it black because that's fun and cute. Next, I move on to his mouth/nose and his hands and his feet, and they're all blue, which really threw me for a loop. Even though I've been looking at Butterfree for a while, I just didn't realize that they were all blue. I don't know why. After that, I paint the antennas, and I paint the wire and the little bulbs on top as well. Before then moving on to painting his eyes, and I go with the red color. In some pictures, they're red, and other pictures, they're pink, so I'm gonna do like a variation of color color. But the first layer is going to be red and I'll add some pinks later. And after that, I'm painting the buttons and you can barely even tell because the silver, it takes so many layers as well for it to show up. So I'm painting 2 of the buttons silver and also the coffin is going to be silver as well. And then one of the buttons is going to be a Pokeball. I wanted to do a dusk ball because I like them, but that doesn't make any sense for Butterfree. But anyway, and with this transition, this is now the Butterfree with layers of paint that took me hours. And now I move on to the detailing and I start with the wings, which I was nervous for, to say the least. I don't have the best brush in the world to make everything nice and smooth, as the end is kind of a little bit frayed, you know? But that's okay, it makes it more unique. I do my best to line up the lines on the Butterfree with the ones that I see on my drawing, but my lines are a little wonky, and that's okay, you know, they got wabi-sabi. Everything is wonderful. Once I'm done this side, I then whoop-bam do the other, and then whoop-bam again, and the front 2 are done as well. So now that the wing detailing is all done, I then move on to the detailing on the Pokeball, so I add the little black lines and the little circle in the middle for the button, and then I also add a little bit more white to the button, before then doing the last and final step, which was to add 2 pink circles to his eyes to give him some irises, and that's the craft. I would like to say thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and now it's time for the glamour shots.